What's going on, everybody? Welcome on in. It's Pro Wrestling Weekly right here in the Takedown on SI. I'm Zach Haydorn. That's Blake Lovell. And Blake, what's going on, man?
Hello, Zach. Yeah, pretty interesting week of wrestling, I would say, and
Yeah,
especially the case for AEW, man. Yeah, a lot of noteworthy stuff coming out of Wednesday night show, and obviously leading into a pretty noteworthy show on Saturday with Grand Slam Australia.
I was doing the results yesterday and watching the show for SI, and I was like, damn, like this is one of the most newsworthy AEW Dynamites, I think, in a long time, in terms of just like straight wrestling
Mm.
storylines and matches. Like I thought it was a really just well put together show ahead of what feels like a kind of like a pay-per-view event on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think that's where when we say like they've sort of found their groove over the past year, I feel like this is another example of that. And I feel like anytime, of course, you say that, it always be taken to the extreme. Not saying everything they do is perfect, but like when it comes to the overall consistency, like it is night and day.
Yeah,
I think
it
again,
really
just
is.
in I mean, it is, and that's where what more can you ask for in terms of like, okay, take the feedback on what didn't work and what was not resonating, try to flip that a little bit and get back to. I mean, this was something I equated like last night as I'm thinking this. It felt like an old AEW Dynamite, and by that I mean like one of those. Not necessarily like first couple or anything like that, but it felt like when they were hitting their groove there at one point before you had a bit of a dip. It seemed like that, like where you had two or three or more things coming out of it, where you're just like, that's a significant development, and not just a significant development because it's significant, but because it makes sense because of like
Yeah,
it's the trajectory that the story is on. And so, yeah, I thought it was like, I mean, it felt chaotic, but like that's I think kind of the point right now is that you just have so many people that are intertwined together, especially as we talk about with like the world title picture. But you get a women's title change, you get the flip back to Kyle Fletcher and the TNT title, and yeah, like it's just sort of the unpredictability is has increased, and I like that.
I really like that too. I mean, there's a lot of I like from the show, but think about it. It was a wild show. Like you had a crazy Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland brawl to open things up. You had a wonderful Kyle Fletcher and Tommaso Ciampa match. You had a Tekla, world championship victory and a nice, fun, vicious strap match main event. But then, like, you also had some like complimenting stuff too. Like, I thought that the angle with Tony Storm
Yeah.
and Wheeler Yuta, like, simple stuff. Like, they didn't reinvent the wheel or anything with it, but like. It made sense. It worked. It got heat. It got some heat on the heels ahead of Saturday night. And I thought Tony Storm cut a hell of a promo from up there. Like even little things like that weren't like the key hooks of the show. And like if you go tell 10 people about the show, you're probably not going to mention the Tony Storm thing because it was so newsworthy elsewhere. But even that played a nice role complementing everything else and made the 2 hours go by like that.
Yeah, and I understand. Anytime you start comparing things online, there are some nuances to this. So when I say attitude era, I'm not saying this is the height of professional wrestling, right? But if you think about it, one of the things I always go back to with that does a lot of that stuff age poorly, of course. But one of the things that I think is always a constant is pretty much everybody had a reason for existing on the show. Like
Yeah.
they were, even if it was the guys that were the lower mid cards, right, or the mid carders and all that, like there was something going on that at least I think you could. Let's say you're not as invested in an upper mid card feud or a main event feud. Maybe you're the outlier or something, but you could at least hook yourself into something like, oh, well, that mid card feud's kind of interesting, or it's so chaotic, it's so over the top that I've got to be invested in it, and that's where if you just go by, let's say, the Grand Slam Australia card, not even thinking beyond that to Revolution or months down the road, it all in. But it's like, if you look at the lineup, they have done something substantial, I feel like, with every single match that's on the card to where every one of these people has had a goal, right? They've had a reason for, in this feud, having some sort of purpose. And I think that is, again, very underrated. It's not where I think at one point in AEW, we used to talk about, well, guys just bounce in and they bounce out, right? They come in, they have a good match, but then you don't see them again for 3 weeks or something like that. This was like a pretty tight group of people that have been used regularly between the two shows. And the story has kind of continued along, some faster, some slower, but everybody here is, again, there are stakes involved. Like they've put effort into this to where all these people have something on the line. And I think you always say it's like stakes. How easy is this? Can it be? Like
Yeah.
just add some stakes,
Yep.
and all of a sudden, it's meaningful.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a lot more about AEW Dynamite, Tekla specifically, Tommaso Ciampa specifically, and Kyle Fletcher. We'll do a little bit of a pseudo preview for AEW Grand Slam. But first, let's set the table here. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly. We're live with this show. This is our flagship live show right here on the Takedown on SI on YouTube. Make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. We got all sorts of cool stuff dropping. I had a couple fun interviews this week. One's going to drop with Joe Hendry. Interviewed Logan Paul earlier today. That was an interesting conversation, to say the least. So lots of good stuff about to hit the channel, as well as our discussion shows and our pay-per-view previews and our PLE previews. All that is here on the channel. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. If you're joining us live today, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you. The live chat is open. If you want to get in on any comments or conversation or rants or raves or yell at us for something, go ahead. That is wide open. If you want to make sure that I see it, you can drop it as a super chat. Anything that you can toss in the tip jar helps Blake and I out. We certainly thank you in advance for that. And then, of course, if you're watching the video right now, hit the like button. It helps us out a lot, more than you think. So if you wouldn't mind and you like what you're hearing, you're going to come back, hit the like button so that we can reach some more eyes and continue to grow this thing. Zach is in our live chat here first up, and he says, it was a very good episode of Dynamite with booking that kept you on your toes. I'm glad, Zach, you brought that up, because that stuck out to me too. Like, so often, or not so often, but in recent memory, you'd have eliminator matches, right? You'd have title matches, and they'd all be good matches, and most of them would even have like some context around it as far as like story. But deep down, I think a lot of those, you just knew, okay, like it's a good match, it'll be fun to watch, but like I'm not necessarily invested in the outcome because I know X person is going to retain the title, or it's not time to take the belt off of MJF. So we know like, he's not going to lose XYZ. I think by having 2 weeks in a row now where you have people like winning matches that ordinarily fans have been conditioned to think they won't win, that's going to help. That's going to help you book meaningful championship matches, meaningful eliminator matches if you want to keep doing that. Just meaningful matches in general, because you threw a curveball the last couple weeks. I think it's before last week you had like 2 years worth of eliminator matches that never went the way of the person trying to win a match or win the title match. And yes, last week you had 2 of them. This week you had two championships, one mid-card title and one, world title that had all the makings of just a television championship match. And both of them, got flipped upside down because Tekla walked out the world champion and Kyle Fletcher got his TNT championship back. I don't, you don't want to play hot potato with these titles. You don't want to treat them like toys that everybody's going to get a chance to play with. At the same time, you do want to use them to make your product more interesting. And I think by kind of throwing those curveballs this week, and especially yesterday with the 2 title changes, I think this helps, them do bigger things down the road on TV.
Yeah, I agree. And I think going back to remember we were having the conversations about kind of the dip in quality. It seemed like it was because every week sort of felt the same, where you're just like, it didn't really matter. You could talk yourself into all these scenarios of how the underdog was going to win. And it's just like, hey, the great competitive match for 12 minutes, but you know who's winning. Like,
Right.
and I think, once you establish that, it's easy to kind of stay in that mindset. So when you do get things like this that throw it off a little bit, and I think it's a great point by Atmosphere in the chat too. Like, it is one of those, and we brought this up when we previewed the Royal Rumble, where it's like, okay, all of a sudden a Jey Uso surprises everyone and wins. Well, guess what? If he didn't win last year, and let's say John Cena won, do you know how many people we would have considered to win this year's Rumble? Probably
Yeah.
like two. But we said, even though Roman Reigns won, that you could make compelling arguments for, an LA Knight of all these other people that could be in that Jey Uso type role. And so now it's kind of, I like this direction for AEW because it's one thing if you're doing it just to do it when it doesn't make any sense and you don't have any direction. But like they clearly have a direction on where they're going with this stuff by, making a swap for the women's title, by, you know, certainly now that we see kind of how things play out with Fletcher, it's like, well, you clearly have a direction with Mark Briscoe now to get to the seventh match. It's going to be a ladder match and those kind of things. So I think that's the important part of it. You're not just doing it to do it. You're doing it with a clear plan moving forward, but at the same time, you're also kind of setting in motion the idea that now, anytime we see these things happen, anytime we see one of these surprise title changes, or we see Brody King come out and squash the champion in 77 seconds, all right, now I'm a little more invested because I think this could happen in this match, or I'm going to predict that it could happen in that match. And so it keeps you on your toes a lot more.
It really does. It really does. So specifically, we saw yesterday Kyle Fletcher defeated Tommaso Ciampa just, a week or so after, 10 days after winning the TNT championship in his first AEW match. Kyle Fletcher wins the TNT title back. And now he's going to face Mark Briscoe at Grand Slam in a ladder match. It's kind of like the end of their unofficial best of 7. Dude, what do you make of that choice? Kind of like an oddball. I mean, again, odd booking that kind of keeps you on your toes. Yes. But boy, if you're Tommaso Ciampa, like you hit the company real hard. And now it's like, okay, I'm not even on the show. I'm not even on Grand Slam anymore. Like, what did you make of that? The hot shot back to Kyle Fletcher. Like the first thing I thought honestly was like, oh man, Ciampa's injured. Like he's injured again. Yeah. Like because it was that jarring to me.
Well, and this is where, if I think about the timing and how all of this played out, you kind of get Ciampa handed to you on a silver platter, right? It's like, okay, he's available. We want to bring him in. We want to do something that is substantial. So let's execute part 1. But then it's like, well, hang on. We have Grand Slam Australia coming up with Kyle Fletcher, and we need him to be a key focus somehow. So what can we do there? And that's where, all right, let's get the title back to him so we can set up this big match for Grand Slam Australia. That will be a huge match. It's number 7. I can't say I would probably be rooting for number 8 at this point, but at least there was a little bit of room between, I guess, 6 and 7. So,
oh boy,
I don't know. Like, I think it's one where with Ciampa, like maybe just by virtue of winning the title, it kind of is one where you immediately kind of establish that baseline of where he's going to be at. And losing to someone like Fletcher, who's been the talk of AEW for, a year or more now, is like the next big thing, the next big star. It's not the worst thing because I don't think Ciampa would be slotted into that role. But I think that's where the timing here is something where it's like in an ideal world, Ciampa comes in after Grand Slam Australia and beats, one of the two there after that, and he's the champion for, a month or two or whatever. But it just seems like they thought this was the best way to get Fletcher in that established role on the card. And, this is where, again, we talked earlier, this is where you really test, has AEW learned from some of those past things? Because if Ciampa disappears for a month, then it's sort of like, uh-oh. Right? Which can happen, and it has happened to many people on this roster.
I'm glad they didn't say, okay, we need Fletcher on this card because it's an Australia card. So let's do like a let's do like a fatal 4-way ladder match for
Yeah,
the
right.
for the title. Like I'm glad they just decided, okay, you know what, we want him on the show, and we want to do this match, so that put him over. Let's make a booking decision, bad, good or bad, we'll find out. But I like that they're you go down that path. You don't always need to just jam 3 stars into a triple threat and call it a day. So I like that. But yeah, I mean, boy, if you're Ciampa, you're like, oh man, I hope this is not the second coming of like a Ruby Riott or somebody like that who like came in and like main evented the first ever Grand Slam show, and obviously now she's out having her baby, but prior to that was just MIA, just completely MIA after a huge push. So yeah, if you're Ciampa, I'm making sure that I stay close to Tony Khan's office in the next couple TVs. What do you think of the match? I thought the match was just like a burner. It was not long. It was not like this epic kind of like 45-minute contest, but man, they actually managed to fit 10 pounds of what in the 5-pound bag, because that was I just thought the match was really crisp and fast paced, and exactly what you'd want to see out of those two guys.
Yeah, and I think that's where like we've established like Fletcher's one of the best out there at this point in terms of just like if you put his resume over the past year up against I mean probably 99% of professional wrestling, like it's going to stand out. And I think it's just, he just doesn't seem to have some of those that you would say are stinkers. Like he just doesn't have those. And he always seems to find a way to make the match compelling in some way, shape, or form. And I think it also speaks to just the Ciampa effect, as we talked about when he left WWE. It's like when you see guys do that, knowing that they could be set. I mean, like we mentioned too, like Ciampa's he was a Triple H guy, and so he could have been set there, sitting on.
Yeah.
I'm about to bring up this segment from last week on SmackDown. I'm just thinking of if Ciampa was in the segment with Fraxium and the Motor City Machine Guns and Gargano's laying back there like,
oh my god,
Candice LeRae's trying to talk him into.
Like,
I'm just like, but that's the thing, right? That's where we say guys that are pretty much betting on, hey, I could be here and just kind of do all this stuff for the rest of my career and probably earn a nice paycheck and be just fine. But I think I've got something to give from a wrestling standpoint. I don't want to just be the guy that's playing the character in the backstage skits and all this. I want to be, the guy who's wrestling. And for someone who came from Ring of Honor and has the history that he has, in NXT and everything else, like you get that. And so I think that's where, to me, coming out of this, there's no question there's plenty of stuff you can do with him. It's just, you got a big roster. And I think it's very important. You have to keep him kind of settled in that upper tier somewhere, just because that's where I think you did establish the baseline when he came in and won. So, I mean, listen, if you think about it, coming out of this match at Grand Slam Australia, like you could certainly see another match, right? I mean, I could see that with him getting the another opportunity, and then where you go from there, there's always the Don Callis family. There's always room for more.
There's always the Don Callis family. Yeah. Ain't that the truth? Atmosphere says in the chat here, the match, it had immediacy that made for an exciting and awesome match that still felt big. Yeah, immediacy. It did have a sense of urgency. I agree with you on that atmosphere. Also, Zach chimed back in and said, please God, let it be the end of their series, that being Fletcher and Mark Briscoe. I'm not opposed to Fletcher winning the title back, but I'm over Fletcher and Briscoe. I mean, I am too, so no question about it, but you are at the best of 7. You might as well just do it. You might as well just wrap it up and tuck it away on this Grand Slam show. So I'm okay with it. The other thing about the match was it was such a good match, and we know Tony Khan likes matches or likes good matches. So like, even if the plan wasn't to go back to Ciampa and Fletcher, I got to think like they put a good case forward with that match, where Tony will look at it and go, that'd be good with 10 extra minutes on pay-per-view. Green light. Like I can totally see that being a thing.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think that's, and if you're thinking about like how that card starts to shape up, I mean, it makes sense. Like I don't know if there's any other just obvious candidates if you decide to go that direction. So
That's true. Yeah, they're right. There haven't been much positioned near that other than those three guys. So, and really not even Mark Briscoe until he reared his head in it yesterday. So,
yeah.
yeah, good point. The more shocking news I thought yesterday was the women's world title changing hands in the main event. Tekla, with the help of her Triangle of Madness faction, beating Chris Statlander to win the women's world title. I thought this was a great call, and I really liked the match too. And I like there's something about Tekla matches that just feel more like a fight than other, not just women's matches, but men's matches too. Like there's an element of like I'm gonna try to fight you with her that I think really resonates. And I think she's just got a really like interesting mannerisms, and she can really like emote. But I didn't think she was going to win the world title. Like I thought that I went into this thinking like, okay, expect a good match, hopefully. And, then, Chris Statlander beats the evil heel and that's it. You move on. But that's not what happened. You had a match where they whipped the, what out of each other with that strap. That was insane. And Tekla wins it at the end. Not clean, but she is the world champion. Were you surprised?
Well, I don't know if I was as surprised maybe as some people, because I almost felt like the way they set this up, I think, and like huge Chris Statlander fan, but I almost felt like this had to be the time if you were going to make this swap based on kind of what the history that's unfolded between these two specifically, but also I think, does it just sort of feel like, is this, I think it's both. I think the answer is probably both. But like, is this more about we need to put the title on Tekla, or is it more about, maybe we need to revamp some things with Statlander, like based off of, I think the character more than anything else, right? Never really doubting the matches. And so I wonder if that's kind of part of the thinking here too. But like you mentioned, like Tekla, it's one where I feel like the Triangle of Madness, like that holds true in her matches, where it's like it is madness. Like she comes out like there's just an energy, like you said, to it that's just different. And so I feel like at some point, if you were going to put Tekla at a certain level, this had to be the time to do it. And I think you could justify it based on where the Statlander title reign was at this point. I thought this needed to kind of be the moment where you capitalized on that. And I will say, like, positioning is everything too, where it's like, okay, you kind of knew this was going to be the main event, but the way it's setting up, I'm just thinking, this is think about what they had just done in the main event on the show before. And this is what goes back to our theme earlier, right? Of like, we're establishing a tone here in our main events that like, this is a must see thing. Like, you don't have to tune in the first hour and just be like, all right, I've seen everything I've seen. We've got something. We're cooking up something every single time in this main event, which that's how it should be, right? Like your main event should be your most significant development on your show, in my opinion. Like it has to be the thing you're keeping people hanging around for. It's not, when you have such a big roster, sometimes I think it's like, I've seen my MJF segment, I'm done. I don't have to see anything else, right? I can check out. I don't have to watch this. I've seen my quarter hour. I'll see you later. Like, that's where I think when you set up something like this to where you give someone kind of their defining moment so far in AEW, she now has that. And I think it's also now an opportunity to kind of readjust things a little bit with Statlander. And so I think it works out for everyone. Maybe you can push back a little bit on the Statlander angle there, but I don't know, man. I've always been a big fan of her, but I just think there was something that wasn't necessarily clicking here, and I think it was probably more like character-based stuff than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, there is something timing. Timing's everything. Like you have to go or not go with people at the right moment. And like to your point, like Tekla was kind of, if you book her the way you booked her, and then she loses this title match, it's kind of like, okay, well, now what? She's just like your Nyla Rose type player, if you want to talk about like a few years ago in AEW, where it's like it's a threat, she's a threat, and they don't win the big one ever. Like they always get to the big one and then barely they're there to get beat. Kind of like, I don't know. I thought that about Kane a lot in WWE. Like treated as this big bad monster, but only really kind of was the top guy for a handful of days, maybe.
I mean, that's where Drew McIntyre has been for the longest time.
Same exact thing. At some point, you gotta go with them, or they're kind of destined to be where they are. And obviously, Tekla doesn't have the longevity that those guys did in AEW, but I think the booking path was certainly the same. Zach in the chat here makes a really interesting point. It says getting the title off Statlander was necessary. Tekla's a good choice. Now it needs to be Tekla and the Sisters of Sin more than Triangle of Madness. She needs to be the star. I very much agree with that, and I kind of think that like she's forced her way into that role. I mean, there's just way more charisma there with her than there is with Julia Hart and Sky Blue. I mean, they're fine background players in that faction, but I mean, I don't think there's any question that Tekla, even if she's not trying to be, like, she just naturally, I think, stands out more and takes the attention from the rest of the group. I think it's gonna be really easy to pivot focus onto her as champion.
Well, and that's where like the presentation of her from the very beginning, like she has felt different than anyone else on the roster, pretty much. Like not even just with her own group, but like she feels like a different animal. Like, and I guess that's where you can bring in the toxic spider aspect, but it's like that's what it feels like. Like she is kind of the off the wall, just at any moment can snap. Like it's just, and that's I think a good thing, especially when you're talking about now for someone who's the champion. And, all the things you can now bring into it of, well, who beats her? And, you can play that game as we go down the road. But, like, I could see this being a pretty – and this is where, like, it's on AEW to keep establishing her as, like, she's the champion now. She's not just the challenger that happened to beat the champion. She is the champion. So you've got to, every week, I think, now put her in a position where, like, you don't want this to be something where it's like, okay, well, she's kind of the transitional champion to then get the title back to whoever. And she may show up in a video package on this, but then she's not going to really wrestle until 3 weeks from now. And, she's just going to kind of come out with the title. So, and I think, and another thing here, Atmosphere just brought it up, but it's like, that's where, again, you're talking about someone who is 5'2", right? Is that, I think that's right. Yeah. And it's just sort of like, it is, but that is right in terms of the intensity. Like you have to present that intensity, and they've done a really good job with it so far. But I think even more so now as the champion, like you've got to push that to 10, like every single time. Like this is a force that no one can overcome based on the intensity, the sheer madness again of just in name. Like that's what I think you want, and I think they've done a better job of that positioning of like. Quite literally, Julia Hart and Sky Blue have been in the background most of the times you see them with her. And, of course, them interfering and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't think this is going to turn into, the worst of the worst when it comes to stable tropes and they're out there every single time she wrestles. You don't want that to be established either. Like, you don't want them to interfere every single time she has a match because I think that doesn't help Tekla. But I think you've got to really... And this is what they've done so well with the men's division, Zach. We talked about it. Like, you really establish your top players, and keeping them there is the hardest part. You have to keep them on that level. And that's where, as a new champion, there's no reason within the next year that Tekla should be dropping down to, oh, she's just an occasional challenger for, a lower-end title or something like that. She needs to stay at this level because it's only going to help the division.
Yeah, I love that. She's just 5'2", and she moves with unmatched intensity. Like she wrestles like she's 6'2". She looks like she's 6'2" when she's wrestling. Right. Like she just commands like just so much of attention. Somebody just said that about Shawn Michaels too, and I forget who it was. I think actually, you know what? It was the Booker T interview that I did. Booker T was like, Shawn Michaels is 5 whatever. 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", something like that. But he wrestles like he's 6'6", or he comes across like he's 6'6", and that's part of it. That's part of the as part of what you want to do. You want
Yeah.
to seem larger than life. I think she really does that. Who are you lining up to face her? If she's your heel champion, like, are you doing another Chris Statlander rematch, or I mean, who can you position now to be an opponent?
I mean, I think you're going to do the rematch, right? Because I feel like there's something you can do out of that, even if you're not expecting Statlander to win the rematch. I think you can send her character in a certain direction if she loses again, and I feel like that's probably a necessity.
Yeah, I bet
I
they could
mean,
do like a steel cage match or something,
yeah.
something like that.
I mean, based on how it played out, I mean, I Jamie Hayter, I would think has to probably be someone that's going to be on that list. Um, I just think Hayter's so I don't want to say far removed, but she's removed like from that height she had at one point. But
Mm-hmm.
like I still think she's a worthy challenger in this cycle, probably. Um, I mean, like beyond that, I mean, you could certainly I mean, if you want to just talk pure interactions, like Tekla and Tony Storm, I think is a
Yeah.
very obvious one at some point, just because you can see that dynamic between those two. And we just talked about like the intensity. Like, I think that's a fascinating thing you could do with those two. But like beyond that, I mean, do you have any obvious choices?
Tony Storm. I mean, that's an obvious.
That's,
To me, that's
yeah,
obvious. Like you definitely. I mean, I would wait on that one. I would make that
right.
a big. That's a pay-per-view. To me,
Yeah.
that's a pay-per-view level kind of program. But yeah, I mean, Jamie Hayter works. I mean, Mercedes Monet obviously is a name, but I don't know that really makes sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
you know it, heel versus heel. Like I don't know about that. So maybe if you turn Mercedes, okay, that's obviously a good match that you want to watch. But I don't know that that's like on deck anytime
No.
soon. So funny that Zach brings us up. Before you say it, Zach, birds is British slang for women. Okay, I get it. I get that. I understand that. I still think the Brawling Birds is just a terrible name for a tag team. I don't know. Break the tie here, maybe, or break the 1-1. But I get that it means something else, but a lot of people don't know that. So it literally just sounds like Brawling Birds if you don't know. And I call me
So,
crazy, but I don't think it's a good idea.
yeah, so like if you just read it, all right? So if you're reading Zach's review over at Takedown on SI and you just see him writing the Brawling Birds, and let's say you're just like jumping in, it's gonna still seem a little odd. But
Yeah.
um
You're gonna
yeah,
go what?
exactly,
Who?
Atmosphere. Hey, Hater and Windsor, what's wrong with that? Like it's a
Yes.
nice little it rolls off the tongue, you
I mean,
know?
you already have Babes of Wrath. Now you have Brawling Birds. Like, just yeah. No, I'm out. I'm out on that. I'm in on the tag team. I'm out on that. I'm out on that. All right, so we got Grand Slam coming up on Saturday. Big event from Australia. I would say, obviously not on the level of a pay-per-view, but a pretty good card if you're going to sit down and watch wrestling on Saturday
Mm-hmm.
night. You got Brody King against MJF for the world title. You've got you got Adam Page and Andrade for the number one contendership for the world title. And then you've got the hair versus hair tag team match, Tony Storm and Orange Cassidy against Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. Those are your three kind of major matches. Anything stand out to you there? Did they do a nice job building this card up? Like, it's not a pay-per-view, but it feels almost like one. I like that there's a differentiation. I like that they're just not throwing a pay-per-view quality card on TV, but they're making it a little bit better than a Dynamite would be. I think that's smart.
Yeah, I mean, unless your thinking was like you were gonna get Hangman and Kenny Omega, I'm just like I'm fine with the way this sets up because obviously we're getting to Omega and Swerve coming up. So like that was kind of and we talked about like the rotating main event scene right now, which Andrade has just been thrust into.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're gonna get that match, so that's substantial for one of the two. Um, Obviously the championship match I think is gonna get a lot of attention. which we may talk about in a second.
We will.
I mentioned earlier, just like the undercard, and if you're looking at just what they've established, like there's something at stake. Like two people are gonna have their, or the loser of the fall is gonna have their head shaved. So it's like, okay, that automatically becomes something that has some stakes involved. The ladder match has stakes involved here. The two other championship matches, Moxley and Takeshita. I mean, is anyone expecting that to be a bad match? Of course not.
Right.
The tag team match I think is intriguing with the women's side of things. Like, I think that's an intriguing match just based on kind of the ascent of Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne. We were talking about them months ago in the tournament and all that. So I think everything on this card, again, has a reason for being there and has been built up nicely to the point to where, sometimes it's easy to just be like, I don't really care about that. It's just kind of adding it. And this is where, when you push back on the bulkiness sometimes of pay-per-views that AEW has, some of them are just like, that could exist somewhere else. But like, if you're building out a card for a special event like this, every single thing on this card, I think, makes sense why it's there.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you think's getting their head shaved? Who should get their head shaved? Is it like I've kind of at first I was like, well, it's obviously going to be Wheeler Yuta. Like he's growing out the hair. He looks like sheepdog. Like, but is that too obvious?
Too obvious.
Like, too obvious, right?
I think it's going to be Marina because they can absolutely, I think, make that work. Because if you're already scared of her, like she already has a presence to her, and now with her head shaved, I think it's only gonna add to the badassness of Marina Shafir. So I think she's the choice.
Yeah, I think Marina's the choice too. I think you can get a lot out of Tony shaving her head too, but it kind of hurts the shtick. It kind of hurts the gimmick. But I mean, you could just imagine the vignettes and the promos, of her without hair, tremendous. So I think either way you go there is good. But going in, I would have said Wheeler Yuta, but it is just a little too obvious. And really, the feud is between the two women. Like that's the main, the main kind of deal is between the two of them. So, should be interesting. Hair versus hair matches, man. They've happened in pro wrestling for decades and decades, and somehow they still get me. I'm still interested in it. Still interested in them.
Mask versus mask, hair versus hair. You just can't go wrong. I think
you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. All right, you kind of alluded to it. I want to talk about the Warner Brothers Discovery and Brody King story that broke this morning. The Wrestling Observer, if you guys missed it, the Wrestling Observer reported that Warner Brothers Discovery made a call at the top above Tony Khan to keep Brody King off the show, off television, because of the F-Ice chants that kind of rang through the building last week and made their way all over social media and all various news shows. AEW got a lot of outside media coverage because of that. And so Observer reported this week that he was not on the show because of that. They didn't want to, create a situation where that could happen again. For what it's worth, Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that that's not true, that the report is not accurate. And he says here, the rumors that Brody King was kept off AEW Dynamite by WBD were vehemently denied to me. So two kind of competing stories there. Because of that, I don't know how deep we want to go since we don't have actual hard and true facts, but I still think that if you're them, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be. I don't think you want to be dictating that kind of thing. That's my personal opinion. That's rooted in a lot of other things outside of just pro wrestling. At the same time, this is the kind of thing that can heat someone up more than ever than you'd ever would have imagined, right? You now lit the pilot light for Brody King. You keep him off TV. Well, when he gets on TV eventually again, I mean, you could be in a situation where you have, a bigger star than maybe you want, just because of outside circumstances and outside, momentum, and feeling like the audience feeling like they're pushing back on something. And you never know where that kind of thing can go. So if I'm Brody King, I'm like, sure, I'll be off TV. That's great. Like I'll wait for my title match, and there we go.
See, and that's the thing is like if you're trying to find the truth in here somewhere of like how this thing played out, I will say like if you look at one of Dave Meltzer's comments, like from his report, which again was vehemently denied on the other side of this thing, but like he brings up the point about you do also have a company here in WDB or WBD. Like the biggest topic surrounding them has been the sale and all the things surrounding that. So if you wanted to craft an argument as to why he may not be on this thing, that would fit, right? I mean, it's like you could see the reasons as to why there may be some hesitation from a company that is currently engaged in all the drama that they are engaged in right now when it comes to this potential, the sale and how everything plays out there. So you could see that. But at the same time, you could also just see it as a simple creative choice to say, all right, we don't really have to put him back out there because there's still plenty of momentum behind what came out of the last time he was out there. So rather than just putting him out there for just a basic segment where maybe you don't exactly match that same momentum, because, I mean, how could you? It'd be impossible, you would think. So the next time you see him, it's going to be when he's wrestling for the top championship. So I think it's actually, if that was the choice, which again, we don't know the truth here, but if that was the choice, just to say, we're going to simply leave him off of this because absence may make the heart grow fonder here when it comes to everybody knows what the level that thing hit the last time he was out there. And now let's go see what happens at Grand Slam Australia. And let's see if there's something right to it. So and again, that's where like the setting now, like it's Australia. Like these are all the things where like there are so many interesting factors to look at now with what could happen when he comes out for his entrance, that I think that it's going to be a story, I think, one way or the other coming out of that show.
I do too. I mean, again, it's like, I think Zach's got it right here, regardless of the story, regardless of whether the story is the way Meltzer has it or the way Sean has it right now. It was actually your WBD clearly doesn't understand how wrestling works, and they think those chants are going to go away. Of course not. Of course, like I don't think they go, oh well, they took him off TV, I guess we shouldn't chant that anymore. Like, no, I don't think that's the thing. But you're right. There are a lot of like that company's actively trying to sell itself, but also prevent itself from being gobbled up by a bigger company that they don't want to be sold to. So there's a lot of balls in the air on that one for sure. Keep it locked to the Takedown on SI, our website. We've got all the updates, all the any kind of breaking news with that, and all the other news of the day is there. So make it part of your day. Put us on a bookmark, flag us. I like to think we have some of the most trusted, balanced coverage of this industry. So lock it down there, the Takedown on SI. We got Jordan from Canada checking in. He goes, thanks for the stream. And then also, a little Brody King shout out. Woof, woof, woof. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it. All right, let's jump over to WWE for a bit. We got Elimination Chamber coming up at the end of the month, February 28th, about 25 minutes that way here in Chicago. We know now that there's going to be 2 Elimination Chamber matches. Both of them will have World Championship implications at WrestleMania regarding the winner wrestling the other Open World Champion. But we also know that AJ Lee is going to wrestle Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and CM Punk is going to wrestle Finn Balor for his WWE World Heavyweight Championship. AJ and Punk both obviously Chicago people at this point. I'll tell you what, I like those matches both for this show. I'm a little surprised that they pulled the trigger on AJ Lee and Becky Lynch. I thought, I still think with all the shows out there, with all the content and all the pay-per-views and international shows and Saudi Arabia, like I still think you want to keep something special for WrestleMania. And I thought that like Becky and AJ first singles match would be that.
Yeah.
But they got to sell at the United Center. So, it's a what, they clearly felt like they needed to move some tickets, and there you go. Now she's got a match here. So it doesn't mean it can't happen at WrestleMania, but you keep taking matches off WrestleMania that are WrestleMania caliber matches. And then, you lose that feel eventually. So I'm not saying it happened here or that this will expedite it at all, but I mean, over the years, you keep doing that to the show, it's gonna feel the impact of it.
That's the thing, right? It's like you could see a WWE scenario where all of a sudden they set up this match and they take it away from you. But you can't do that with AJ Lee in Chicago. Like,
right. No, right.
You can't. Like, that's the thing, is I'm like, that would be a very, very risky move, is to promote a match somehow, the match never happens and you get a SmackDown special, which I like to call it, where you advertise the match and then people just go out and brawl with each other in the crowd for a while, and somebody gets put through a table, and that's good enough, right? I don't need the actual match. You gave me what I wanted. Could I see that happening? Maybe. But it's tough because you're talking about AJ Lee in Chicago, and this is the big match that you've been building up. So I think WrestleMania is already going to feature one rematch. I mean, it's 14 times at this point. Cody and Drew. It seems like we're headed towards that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do add in Jacob Fatu, but I think the story they're telling seems way too much focused on Cody and Drew. So I'm like, if you do Becky and AJ, that's another one potentially. But I mean, you got to do it. Like, I don't know what else. There's nothing else attached to these two, right? So yeah, I will say they've made it a little unpredictable, because I don't know how they get from doing it in Elimination Chamber to then doing it at WrestleMania and making it feel different. But you know what? I mean, Becky and Lyra had a pretty good 3-match series last year that worked out well. So, there's a way to get there. It's just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like the match. I do. Obviously, it's going to be a heck of a match. I thought it was built up well. It's been built up for months. It's just, you want WrestleMania to still have some novelty. You're kind of like, again, now that you can't do this match there, but it's you can only do it the first time once, and so it's going to be an Elimination Chamber instead of WrestleMania. On the other side, CM Punk. I wrote about this week earlier that, like, man, if you're Triple H right now and you kind of go on a limb and decide, all right, let's bring CM Punk back in 2023, this has to be like the high end of what you expected your return on that would be, right? I mean, he's not doing anything fancy out there. He's not, as we talked about earlier, there's no kind of reinvention of pro wrestling, but man, he's just going through kind of A plus B equals C steps, and it's working. Like, his feuds are compelling, his promos are compelling, his matches are compelling. Crowd cheers him. I mean, to me, if I'm Triple H, I'm going, hell yeah, this is the high end of what I expected.
I think you could argue this is one of the best world title runs in WWE in years.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, like Cody's win after WrestleMania 40, yeah, he had the matches with AJ, but then like it eventually got to who? Like Solo and ones like that. Like, it was fine. And it was, this last time around, obviously we know kind of how that unfolded with him. But, even the Roman thing, for as long as that title reign was, towards the end, it just kind of became, we know Roman's going to win. Like, there's not much of a spectacle there. I think this reign for Punk has been tremendous. So I think, it's definitely on the higher end, not just for what you would think Punk's role would be since coming back, but like, I think just in terms of like the overall quality you're getting on a week in and week out basis. Like, it's, think about like the injuries and that kind of stuff with Punk, and thinking, could he really do this week after week and be in these kind of positions? And we had every right to question that for the longest time. And so far, knock on wood, like it's going, and it's going at a high level. So that's where, again, it's a hard sell. And that's where we again talk about the geography, right? We mentioned with Kyle Fletcher in Australia. AJ Lee's got to have something to do in Chicago. Punk's got to have something to do. It's a tough spot because no one's really expecting Finn Balor to beat CM Punk. But You're going to get a good match. You're going to get the crowd cheering Punk, and that's about as easy as it gets for a Chicago show. So
should be a layup. Should be a layup for them. So Zach says here, CM Punk versus Finn Balor is a stupid match to do when you've already wasted your Royal Rumble win to set up a Roman versus Punk match at Mania. Like, I disagree, Zach. I mean, I think that if you set this up and you don't address it, like you don't address the elephant in the room of like, well, you've got this Roman Reigns match coming up, Punk. Like, why are you doing this? They jumped through that hoop. Like that to me, like from a storyline perspective, they told you why. Like CM Punk's a fighting champion, and he's looking for revenge on CM Punk, and he's the confident fighting babyface that's going to get his revenge on the heel. And yeah, it's a risk. He called that out in the promo, and yeah, I know what I'm risking. But to me, like that's like if a NFL team is in the playoffs and they clinch the playoffs week 13, they still have games week 14, week 15. You still have those, even though inevitably where you're going. I didn't mind that part of this at all, Blake. I actually appreciated the detail work.
Well, and clearly too, they're trying to establish Balor at a different level than he has been, and that's where we always talk about it. It's one thing to try that. Can you keep him there for whatever eventually is going to be of the Judgment Day? So I think it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be a great match. There's no question. But I think it's like, how do you really sell any sort of idea that Balor's going to win? Like that's clearly the biggest uphill climb you have here.
For
but
sure. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you don't have to surprise people. Like I said, it's CM Punk in Chicago. Like, you give the people what they want and go on to the next one. Like, so.
I don't know. I just think that like I'm catching some flack from Zach here, but like I don't think that like the story of this title match isn't Finn Balor's on this great run. He deserves a title shot. Like, let's go. No. He can absolutely lose. It doesn't matter whether people believe whether or not he can win. Even if people don't think he can, the whole idea here is CM Punk wants to fight Finn Balor. Yeah, he's not. To me, it's like he's not a credible challenger. He shouldn't have this match, but Punk got it for him essentially so that he can get revenge on him. So I don't think you have to have in this one the same type of psychology and dynamic that other title matches have, because that's not the premise of this whole thing.
No, you have a fighting champion who wants to fight.
Yeah,
done.
And is admittedly giving the shot to somebody who really doesn't deserve it because he just wants to beat him up.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's while understanding, yes, like the risk of the WrestleMania main event, but it's the fighting champion who has been known to be stubborn. I think it's pretty simple.
Yes, stubborn and a little prickly.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll cover all things Elimination Chamber as we lead up to that. Obviously, we'll have all your coverage here at the Take That On SI, full preview. We'll keep it here locked in for you as the final build happens. All right, we're wrapping up, so let's name that main event. Blake, you got something on deck?
I got this one, and the only reason I picked this one is because I saw this interview being replayed a while back, and it's not even the match itself. It's an interview that happened before the match, and so this one always just sticks with me, so we're going to go with this. For the WWF Championship, in a no disqualification match, the champion, The Rock, defends against Kurt Angle.
Oh. Dang. All right, so we're doing so it's I'm going to say it's 2000 like it's not Fully Loaded because that was Rock and this other guy.
Yeah.
Backlash?
But you're close.
Is it 2000?
Yeah.
So like, and it's not Vengeance because that was like a triple threat. But that was later, I think. That was like 2002.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with my fellow Zach here, who says No Mercy 2000.
Ding. Zach is the winner.
Yes.
Look at this knowledge being spread in the chat. No Mercy 2000.
Smart. We're smart.
Kurt Angle does defeat The Rock for the WWF Championship. Stephanie McMahon, Helmsley in his corner. But if you guys remember, this is
the December No Mercy, right? Or like
no, this was in October, October 22nd, 2000,
wow,
Albany,
okay.
New York, at the Knickerbocker Arena, and 14,342 in attendance for this one. So this is the one, if you remember, there was the famous Sunday Night Heat interview that Kurt Angle did with The Rock. And what it was Kurt Angle asking the questions and them having canned responses that The Rock had used in previous interviews to answer Angle's questions. And it's one of the most hilarious things that Kurt Angle has ever done. And that's saying a lot because the guy's done plenty of comedy. Yeah. It was tremendous. I would highly recommend anyone go search for it. Kurt Angle interview The Rock, No Mercy. You'll find it. It's just excellent, excellent stuff. Also on this card, Triple H defeats Benoit. The Los Conquistadors defeated the Hardy Boys to win the tag team championships. We know who they were. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Rikishi. In a no holds. So we're getting back for the car. No holds barred match ends in a no contest. So keep that in mind. But quickly, Jericho defeats X-Pac in a steel cage match. Steven Richards and Val Venus defeat Mr. Ass and Chyna. You had the Dudley Boys Tag Team Invitational Tables Gauntlet. They won against Too Cool, Bull Buchanan, the Good Father, Taz and Raven, and D'Lo Brown and Chaz. But the match that we all have to remember, William Regal retained the WWF European Championship against Naked Midian.
Oh, boy.
There you go, Zach.
Well, how could
2000.
Yeah, I definitely blocked that match from memory. But that's God dang, that's like your, prime peak Attitude Era, like pay-per-view.
2000 was, I think, in terms of like pure like wrestling television, I think WWF in 2000 was as good as it got.
I mean, geez, like, God, I remember like watching that and being like, oh man, Stone Cold's back. This is good. This is good news. Yeah, I was confusing. So Zach here in the chat says I knew the answer because Angle won and The Rock won it back and no way else but one. Yep. I was thinking when I was saying,
could have been that one.
February, it was that one. So yeah, good call. Good call, Zach. That's a man, boy, 2000. Like that's a year to go back and like watch someday, just straight through because you forget. And I mean, I forget like, whether or not any of those matches were really good. Like, I don't think the matches back then weren't the same as they are now. Mm-hmm. But boy, on paper, holy cow.
Yeah.
Wild. All right. Until next time, name that main event. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to put a bow on this one today. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks to Jordan and Zach and Atlasphere and Sean, who just joined us. Thank you. Appreciate it. If you guys are watching live, or watching after the fact, like the video. It helps us out a lot. We're here every single Thursday afternoon, 12 Eastern, with this show, Pro Wrestling Weekly, talking the news and happenings of the week with you live on the YouTube channel. So we'll catch you next time. Check out the channel upcoming with interviews with Joe Hendry. I have an interview with Logan Paul that's going to drop really, really soon. So check that one out. Lots of cool stuff happening here at the Takedown on SI. Don't miss it. For Blake, I'm Zach. We'll catch you guys next time. See you.